am in Cairo, Illinois, and this is a very interesting town. It is right on the confluence of the Mississippi and Ohio rivers on the southern tip of the state. And while this was once a very prosperous town, it's basically a ghost town now. In the 1920s, 15,000 people lived here. Now about 2,000 do. And I'm filming this during the George Floyd protests in 2020 when George Floyd, a black man, was murdered by a police officer. And this town has a very similar story that has significantly led to its demise. And this town kind of showcases what can happen, what will happen, and what is happening across the country unless things change. We'll start out with perhaps the one place that is still in pristine condition here in Cairo, Magnolia Manor. This beautiful 4-story Italianate home on Millionaire's Row was built in 1869 by Cairo businessman Charles A. Gallagher. He made his fortune selling flour to the government during the Civil War. As General Ulysses S. Grant established Fort Defiance at the Confluence during the Civil War, Grant became friends with Gallagher. Later on, when Grant ended his 2-term presidency, Gallagher threw a lavish party for the former president here at Magnolia Manor. As the town around it has changed a lot over the years, nowadays the home and gardens are in pretty good shape because it is actually restored as a museum. While I would love to go inside, due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, it is closed. So hopefully I can go inside another time. Magnolia Manor is a testament to the once great economic prosperity and importance of this river town. Millionaire's Row still has its brick boulevard and green spaces, though it's not nearly as nice as it was when millionaires lived here. Many of the grand Victorian mansions are long gone or abandoned. Across from Magnolia Manor is Riverlore, built in 1865 by Captain William Parker Halliday, who also knew General Grant. It's actually larger than Magnolia Manor and even had an 18-seat theater inside. Riverlore's brilliant architecture, including the mansard roof, has been allowed to deteriorate away for quite a while. The home was gifted to the city of Cairo with the intent to open it as a museum as well. But it's been over 20 years since that happened, and it's still not looking all that great, so not sure if that's ever gonna happen. Here's a classic hitching post from the horse and carriage days, still located along Millionaire's Row. This depleted home is similar to many surrounding Magnolia Manor, showing what has become of this place that was once considered ideal luxury. And there's the entrance to the historic Park District. Now we'll take a drive along a once bustling Route 51 into town. Due to this town's position due north of the confluence of the Ohio and Mississippi rivers, it naturally became an important port city for steamboats traveling to New Orleans and elsewhere. Cairo's antebellum days were very prosperous due to the river trade and trade by railroad. Illinois' southernmost town was the southern terminus of the New York Central Railroad, as well as the Cairo-Thebes line. The Iron Mountain and Cotton Belt railroads also had their cars ferried across the Mississippi at Cairo. Union military occupation during the Civil War did cause much trade to be diverted north to Chicago. However, Cairo recovered in a big way after the war when steamboat traffic picked up and railroad shipping boomed. The economic decline began when bypassing bridges were built around the turn of the century, and in time the importance of river trade decreased immensely. Severe floods like the one in 1937 also did much damage to the city, especially when racial tensions flared up. This city had a severe racism problem, which really sparked when the economy began its slow decline. Of about 13,000 people living here around the turn of the century, over 5,000 of them were African Americans, an unusually high proportion of blacks compared to most towns this size. Just as the local economy began its decline in 1909, William James was accused of the murder of a local white woman, so he was arrested on speculation. Turns out there was no evidence of his connection to the murder, but the white population was aggravated by the murder, so a white mob of locals rushed him during a prison transfer and dragged him downtown for a spectacle lynching, attended by about 10,000 people. The rope broke and he survived, so they shot him over 500 times, decapitated him, and stuck his head on a pole by the original crime scene. Soon after that, the mob also lynched a local white man in prison for having murdered his wife. This terrible event caused much racial rigidity for decades to come. By the 1960s, as the shipping, ferry, and railroad industries left, the population really began to decline. During the Civil Rights Movement, this town's bureaucracy was still dominated by the white population, and the large population of African Americans were regularly harassed. In 1967, a 19-year-old black soldier named Robert Hunt was home on leave here in Cairo when he was found hanged in the police station. The police claimed that he killed himself, but the black community here did not believe that story due to the widespread police discrimination. Hunt's death, which was likely done by the police, instigated riots here, which grew to related race riots in over 40 cities that summer of '67. Firebombs began going off, several buildings were burned, and the National Guard was activated. Unrest remained constant here, as the white citizens formed a group called the White Hats that were endorsed by the sheriff. They would patrol around the streets wearing white hats, and since the police were on their side, they got away with much harassment and bullying of blacks. Since this was the White Hats' main focus as opposed to improving the community as a whole, it just made things far worse. The black population responded by forming the Cairo United Front to counter the White Hats and attempt to make change. The violence peaked in 1969 when the Cairo United Front began demonstrations to end segregation here and get their demands honored. The National Guard eventually broke up the demonstrations, so the United Front began boycotting white-owned businesses, which were most of Cairo's businesses. By 1970, this culture of strict segregation and hostility, along with the further crippling of the local economy for other reasons, led most black residents to flee town, along with much of the white population. This continuous bailing by most citizens over the following decades would truly turn this once boom town into a ghost town, largely a result of its own self-destruction by racism. Alright, this is fabulous downtown Cairo, Illinois, or as a shirtless wheelchair-bound local called it, Bum Fudge, Egypt. Only he didn't say fudge. Commercial Avenue was once a bustling business district, which now sits eerily empty. It doesn't appear that any of these remaining buildings are open. Everything is boarded up, and many buildings have obviously been razed. This is the intersection where thousands gather to watch the lynching and mutilation of William Froggy James. The intersection used to have a big cast iron archway. No idea what happened to that. Here you can see the original tile work that would have been in front of a door to a bank that is long gone. This is just insane. Here's some more fantastic tile work from raised buildings. I'm pretty sure the Chamber of Commerce is no longer in here, but I do like that sign. The Gem Theater is a beauty. That's as classic as it gets. It originally opened in 1910, however this building was built in 1934 and it closed in 1978. It is sadly in bad shape and all the windows are boarded up. Man, look at that Art Deco architecture and that marquee. I'm looking on the side of the Gem Theater. There's clearly a lot of overgrowth on these buildings. It appears that a large tree has either collapsed into the wall or is growing inside of it, which I think may be the case, creating a huge opening into the theater itself. This auditorium is in terrible shape, especially after being somewhat exposed to the elements. Well, this is actually pretty cool. It is really tragic to see this treasure go to waste like this. The fledgling region has attempted a comeback, with racially integrated attempts at tourism and historic preservation, but besides Magnolia Manor, which I think is state-owned, I do not believe anything has been very successful. Compare today's Cairo with this postcard from the 1920s. Most of those buildings are gone, and look at that, they even used to have a freaking electric trolley. This is the Hewer, a sculpture of a nude man dragging wood to save the people from a flood. It was erected in memory of Captain Halliday, who owned Riverlore. That's a really cool civic monument that has survived all the turmoil. This region is flood prone, which is why this wall has been constructed to protect the downtown commercial district from the river, but it apparently didn't need a flood to be destroyed. Also, Cairo is considered the gateway to the south. There's a caboose from the Illinois Central Railroad which would have gone through Cairo. Here are the final miles of the Ohio River before it spills into the Mississippi. Now we'll drive further south to the Confluence itself at Fort Defiance Park. I think that's pretty important, so maybe it'll be in nice shape and not abandoned in Erie. At the somewhat conspicuous entrance to Fort Defiance Park, they have a historical marker. Looks like this is a stop on the Great River Road, the road that follows the Mississippi River. At the beginning of their voyage, Lewis and Clark charted the Confluence area and stayed around here in November of 1803. And here's another marker. They spent nearly a week here learning how to determine longitude and latitude, a skill they would need for their westward expedition. Here, the beginning of the third principal meridian is located in the Ohio River, directly north of this point. In 1803, this was the mouth of the Ohio River. So I don't know if this is closed or what. The parking back there has a gate locked off. I don't know if there's an actual road that you can take here, but I've been running for like half a mile to try and see this confluence. I thought it was a public park. Oh man. It's really hot out today. I don't know, but I feel like Fort Defiance Park is now abandoned. Like, this isn't even a road. No one's really been on here for a long time. This is weird. Well, the park is definitely not maintained. It's at least been closed for a while because river flooding, because this is all river mud that's along the road here. So I don't know if usually you can walk, you can drive. So I don't know if usually you can drive out here. There's the observation tower. Looks like you can climb up there and get a better view over the confluence. Yeah, I don't think anyone's been here for a while. There are cobwebs and all sorts of stuff. But anyways, look at that. That's the confluence of the Ohio River and the mighty Mississippi River. Here's the view from the lower level of the observation deck. Camp Defiance here was established by Ulysses S. Grant during the Civil War as primarily a training ground. Yeah, look at that, the observation platform is all graffitied up. Looks like there's a lot of birds flocking around. And looks like there's been fire pits underneath here and maybe some squatters. There's some stuff. Oh, they're gonna poo on my head. Looks like someone has left supplies behind the staircase there. Looks like beneath this brutalist observation deck they have an old plaque, the Meeting of the Rivers. Looks like LaSalle, Father Marquette, Joliet all glided past here in the 1600s, the early explorations of the Ohio and Mississippi areas. Looks like this here in front of the observation platform is the Lewis and Clark Memorial. And this is it, the confluence of the Ohio River and the Mississippi River. This is the Ohio River right here. It ends right here. It starts all the way over by Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And it's right here. And of course the Mississippi right here will continue to go a long ways down past New Orleans to empty into the Gulf of Mexico. And there's the bridge I'll be taking over to Missouri to continue my westward road trip. Oh, look at that, there's a barge parked right up here. And there's the bridge over to Kentucky, over there. And by the way, this is the lowest point in the state of Illinois. These look like they were old swing sets. I wonder if there was a playground here at one point. Obviously, it's been long abandoned. And there's that one little string that's still hanging up there. Yeah, that's definitely some river debris right there. Yeah, it's either not maintained or river flooding did this. But again, it does not look like people have been around here, even though a flood has gone through. There's someone's shoe. So yeah, Cairo is pretty tragic to see in that state. Just, you know, again, shows what racism, racial tensions, poor economic situations, socioeconomic relations, what that can do to a place. And especially with the George Floyd protests, you know, the highest unemployment rate we've seen in a long time, coronavirus, businesses struggling all over the place, except the gigantic ones that are already fine that got the giant government contracts. But that's besides the point. But anyways, pretty interesting nonetheless. If you'd like to see other abandoned places and other unique places, then please check out my other videos. And man, I gotta run a long ways back to the parking lot and quick. But anyways, thanks for watching.